You! I know it was you. Don't you dare play dumb with me." Karen's voice sliced through the Saturday morning air like a siren, the kind that makes you instinctively flinch even if you've done nothing wrong. She wasn't just yelling. She was broadcasting, announcing to the entire cul-de-sac that a crime of unimaginable proportions had been committed. Her house slippers slapped against the asphalt, her floral robe flaring dramatically in the breeze, and in her hand she clutched her tablet like it was Exhibit A in a murder trial. Neighbors peeked from behind blinds. Sprinklers hissed to life across the street, masking laughter that people didn't want her to hear. My son froze beside me on the porch, caught in the crossfire of her fury. I sipped my coffee, half dreading, half delighted at what was about to unfold. Karen accused us of sabotage. Not just any sabotage, no. She claimed someone had deliberately blocked her access to the HOA portal. According to her, this was no minor inconvenience. This was treason against the bylaws, a deliberate attempt to undermine her presidency. She jabbed her tablet at me like it might explode. "Don't you see?" she demanded, eyes blazing. "The system is compromised. My access is gone. Someone is trying to stage a coup. Now, let me pause. Because if you don't live under the rule of an HOA, you might not understand the gravity or ridiculousness of this moment." For Karen, HOA president of Briarwood Estates, the HOA portal wasn't just a website. It was her throne. Through it, she filed violation notices, updated bylaws, and sent out those cheerful yet passive-aggressive newsletters reminding us that trash bins should be stored out of street view, lest property values decline. To be cut off from the portal was, for her, like being dethroned mid-reign. I could feel my son shift awkwardly beside me. He's a quiet kid, book-smart, tech-savvy, and with a wry sense of humor he rarely lets slip around adults. That morning, before Karen's slippered march of doom, he'd updated our Wi-Fi password. We'd had neighbors leeching off it for months, slowing down the connection, and he'd finally decided to take control. A harmless move. Innocent. But try telling that to Karen. Her voice climbed higher, attracting more of an audience. Mr. Thompson pretended to prune his roses, but didn't bother hiding his grin. Mrs. Delgado cracked open her front door, dog leash dangling in her hand. Karen didn't care. She thrived on the performance. "You think this is funny?" she shrieked. "Do you realize what happens if I can't log in? The community vote on the mailbox paint color is next week. The insurance renewal, the entire neighborhood is at risk." I blinked. Mailbox paint, insurance renewal. The way she said it, you'd think civilization itself was hanging by a thread. "Karen," I said gently, "I don't think the internet is conspiring against you." But logic had no place here. She spun on my son, narrowing her eyes. "It was you, wasn't it? You and your little gadgets. You've been hacking the system." My son opened his mouth, probably to protest, but I shook my head. Sometimes silence is safer. Karen wasn't finished. She straightened her robe, lifted her chin, and declared, "This is bigger than you. Bigger than all of us. I am calling an emergency HOA meeting. Tonight." Gasps, or maybe muffled laughs, rippled from the hidden audience. The last emergency meeting she'd called was over the hammock scandal, when someone strung a hammock between two common area trees. That meeting had lasted 3 hours and ended with laminated diagrams of approved outdoor relaxation equipment. I could see it already. She'd march into the clubhouse, papers flying, accusing us of high-tech sabotage while neighbors shifted uncomfortably in their folding chairs. And worst of all, she'd drag my son into the spotlight. "Karen," I tried again, "maybe your password just expired. Happens to the best of us." Her eyes flashed. "Do not patronize me. I know an attack when I see one." And with that, she spun on her heel and marched back to her house, slippers slapping, robe flapping, tablet clutched like a shield. The cul-de-sac exhaled. The sprinklers cut off. My son finally spoke. "Mom," he muttered, "do you think she knows she's been using our Wi-Fi this whole time?" I nearly choked on my coffee. Because yes, our guest network had been unsecured for months, and yes, it wouldn't have been hard for her devices to latch on. If he'd changed the password, and if her tablet had been piggybacking, oh no. The realization hit me like a bucket of cold water. To her, it must look like a deliberate lockout. To us, it was just housekeeping. But Karen wasn't going to see it that way. Across the street, her blinds twitched shut. I had no doubt she was already drafting the emergency meeting agenda. The neighborhood might have laughed this morning, but by tonight, she'd have whipped it into something else entirely. I turned to my son, who was now smirking, a glint of mischievous pride in his eyes. "You may have just started a war," I said. And in that moment I wasn't sure if I should scold him or thank him. "Open the door, or I'll cite you for obstruction." Karen's voice rattled the windows like a poorly tuned trumpet. She stood on my front step with a stack of violation notices so thick it looked like she'd robbed a printer. Her lipstick was a shade too sharp for 9 in the morning, and her hair was pulled into a bun so tight I wondered if it was cutting off circulation. Behind her, the neighborhood stirred, garage doors groaning open, lawnmowers coughing to life, kids pedaling their bikes in chaotic loops, while she tried to stage what looked like a neighborhood raid. I wasn't even out of my pajamas yet. Coffee in hand, robe belted, I cracked the door just enough to see her eyes blazing. My son, lurking in the living room, mouthed one word: Rooter. He knew exactly why she was here, and the grin twitching at the corners of his mouth was dangerously close to blowing our cover. Karen wasted no time. "I am here," she announced grandly, "to inspect your network equipment. As HOA president, I have the right to investigate suspected vandalism against community systems." She shook the stack of papers for emphasis. "This is serious digital misconduct. Digital misconduct." I had to bite my lip. In all my years of dealing with Karen's dramatics, hammock disputes, lawn height wars, the infamous pumpkin incident, I had never heard her invent a charge quite like this. "Karen," I said carefully, "there's nothing in the bylaws about inspecting someone's router." She sniffed, flipping through her stack until she found the page she wanted. Article 14, Section 3. All members must maintain property in a manner consistent with community safety and security. Compromised Wi-Fi poses a security risk. She tapped the page as though she were quoting the Constitution. Behind me, my son snorted. Loudly. Karen's head snapped up. "Oh, it's him, isn't it? Your little hacker? The neighborhood anarchist." She jabbed her finger toward the doorway. "I know he's behind this. He's been planting digital graffiti." I almost asked her to define digital graffiti, but I decided against it. Safer to let her spin her own wheels. What she didn't know, what nobody knew yet, was that my son had, in fact, set up a little trick. Not malicious, just clever. If Karen tried to log on to our network again, instead of being prompted for the password, her tablet would display a message he'd written. "Unauthorized access attempt detected. Please contact System Administrator Karen." It was childish. It was hilarious. And it was only a matter of time before it detonated. I crossed my arms. "Karen, I'm not letting you into my house. End of story." Her nostrils flared. "Then I'll document your refusal." She shuffled her papers until she found a blank violation notice, clicked her pen, and began scribbling furiously. "Failure to cooperate with HOA directives. That's a fine." "You can't fine me for protecting my own Wi-Fi," I said. Her lips curled into a smile that was equal parts smug and sinister. "Watch me." By now, neighbors had started drifting closer, drawn by the spectacle. Mr. Thompson leaned against his mailbox, coffee mug in hand, grinning like he'd bought front-row tickets. Mrs. Delgado appeared with her dog, who immediately barked at Karen's heels, setting off a chain reaction of barking up and down the street. The chaos was theatrical, almost choreographed. Karen turned, raising her voice so everyone could hear. "This is what happens when we allow rogue elements into our community. First, they change the Wi-Fi. Next, they undermine our systems. If we don't act, there will be rebellion. Rebellion against the HOA over Wi-Fi. I wanted to laugh, but the whispers around me told a different story. People weren't just entertained. They were curious. Was it true? Had someone really locked Karen out of her own digital kingdom? And if so, what did that mean for the rest of us? That's when my son made his move. Quietly, stealthily, he slipped his phone out of his pocket and tapped a few commands. Within seconds, Karen's tablet pinged. She froze mid-rant, fumbling to unlock it. The screen lit up with the message, "Unauthorized access attempt detected. Please contact System Administrator Karen." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's face turned crimson. See? See what I mean? They're mocking me, using my own name. The irony was exquisite. She had no idea she was doing it to herself. "Karen," I said, trying to keep a straight face, "maybe you should call the administrator, whoever that is." Her glare could have scorched earth. "This is war," she hissed. And just like that, she spun on her heel, papers flapping, slippers slapping the pavement as she stormed back down the street. The crowd slowly dispersed, some shaking their heads, others chuckling under their breath. But the whispers lingered. By dinner time, the cul-de-sac had split into factions. Some neighbors thought Karen had finally gone off the deep end. Others were convinced something shady was happening with our internet and whispered about what else we might be hiding. And Karen. She doubled down, sending a mass email that evening titled, "Briarwood Emergency, Neighborhood Under Cyber Siege." I read it aloud at the table, nearly choking on my food. My son just smirked. "Wait until tomorrow," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "What happens tomorrow?" He didn't answer, just kept chewing, eyes gleaming with the kind of mischief that promised we hadn't seen the worst of it yet. And as much as I dreaded it, a part of me couldn't wait. "Ladies and gentlemen, this neighborhood is under attack." Karen's voice boomed through the cramped clubhouse like she was presiding over the United Nations instead of 30 folding chairs and a plate of store-brand cookies. On the wall behind her, a portable monitor glowed with screenshots she'd cobbled together. Error messages, login prompts, a Wi-Fi symbol with a red X over it. She wielded a laser pointer like a sword, stabbing the air with each accusation. The room hummed with a mix of curiosity and amusement. I sat halfway back, arms crossed, my son slouched beside me with the calm detachment of a magician waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the trick. The crowd leaned in. Mr. Thompson raised his eyebrows like he was watching an episode of Law and Order, HOA Unit. Mrs. Delgado clutched her dog in her lap, whispering something that made the woman next to her stifle a laugh. The smell of burnt coffee from the corner percolator mingled with the tang of floor polish. Every sense screamed that this wasn't a meeting. It was theater. Karen clicked to her next slide. "As you can see, at precisely 8:42 a.m., my access to the HOA portal was severed. Shortly thereafter, I received hostile digital messages on my personal tablet." She jabbed her pointer toward the screen. "This is targeted harassment. This is sabotage." Gasps fluttered through the room, though more than a few looked suspiciously like snickers. I raised my hand. "Karen, maybe your tablet just disconnected." Her glare could have curdled milk. "Don't patronize me. This is a coordinated attack. If our HOA portal is compromised, our entire neighborhood is vulnerable. Financial records, meeting minutes, architectural approvals, all at risk." It was classic Karen. Inflate the stakes until the mundane felt catastrophic. But what she didn't realize was that the real show hadn't even started. My son shifted, finally leaning forward. His voice was quiet but carried. "Actually, I think I can explain." Every head turned. He wasn't a talker, which made the room's sudden silence feel heavy, electric. Karen sneered. "Oh, so the hacker admits it." He ignored her and pulled out his laptop. A few keystrokes, and the projector switched feeds. The monitor now displayed a simple Wi-Fi connection log. Rows of timestamps, device IDs, and auto-connect attempts filled the screen. He highlighted one line after another, the same device popping up like clockwork. "This," he said calmly, "is Karen's tablet. It's been connecting to our guest network for months." Whispers rippled instantly. Heads swiveled toward Karen. She paled, opening and closing her mouth like a fish caught out of water. "That's a lie," she barked. He clicked again, bringing up the device ID next to her email, synced automatically from a login attempt. "It's not a lie. Your tablet was piggybacking off our Wi-Fi. When I changed the password, you got locked out. That's why you thought you were being hacked." The silence that followed was thicker than wet cement. And then the room broke. Laughter, gasps, a few low whistles. Mr. Thompson actually clapped once before catching himself. Karen slammed her pointer on the table, her face the shade of a ripe tomato. You planted this. You're twisting evidence." But the neighbors weren't buying it. A woman in the front row raised her hand. "Karen, weren't you the one who ordered all those smart security cameras with HOA funds last year? The ones that supposedly protect us?" Another voice piped up. "Yeah, didn't you get that fancy doorbell too? Paid for out of the community tech budget?" The murmurs snowballed. Suddenly, it wasn't about Wi-Fi. It was about money. Where it went. What she'd bought. Why the HOA dues kept inching higher while the clubhouse ceiling still leaked every time it rained. Karen's veneer of control cracked. "This is slander. Outrageous slander." But the energy in the room had shifted. Whispers of recall drifted from one side to the other, cautious at first, then bolder. A man in the back muttered something about a petition. Mrs. Delgado's dog barked once as if punctuating the tension. I leaned back, heart pounding. It was happening. Karen's iron grip on Briarwood Estates was slipping, undone not by angry letters or tedious bylaw battles, but by a Wi-Fi password and a kid with too much free time. Karen gathered her papers in a frantic shuffle, the once commanding stack now a crumpled mess. She fumbled to unplug the monitor, yanking at cords like she could erase what everyone had just seen. Her voice, shrill now, cut through the chatter. "This meeting is adjourned. Anyone spreading lies will be fined." No one listened. Neighbors huddled together in clusters, already strategizing. The air buzzed with possibility, a mutiny brewing under the fluorescent lights. My son closed his laptop with a snap and leaned toward me. "Told you it would be fun." I should have scolded him. I should have reminded him this wasn't a game. But as I looked around the room, the smirks, the whispers, the cracks in Karen's once impenetrable armor, I couldn't help but smile. Karen stormed out, papers trailing behind her like breadcrumbs, and as the door slammed shut, the whispers solidified into something more dangerous. Intent. A recall election was no longer just an idea. It was inevitable.